Okay, so what's happening at the moment is oscillator B is modulating the pitch of oscillator A. If I turn the level of oscillator B down, then that modulation will stop. Okay, so oscillator A is basically playing a kind of truncated saw wave. So, you know, a saw wave obviously has harmonics going all the way up, but this one actually has 8 harmonics and then it stops. So it's a very deep sound. This oscillator has a square wave on it, and as I turn it up, it starts to modulate the pitch of the oscillator A, but very, very fast, which basically creates the tone that you hear. And this coarse tuning here is actually the harmonic series. So like every time you turn that up, it goes like all the way up to 48. So yeah, this is you can get some like really crazy tones just with like literally these four knobs, changing the waveforms, changing the levels, changing the coarse tuning. There's a really just large range of tones you can get with just a few knobs. Okay, so the sound's coming out of oscillator A, and then the first thing it's doing is it's going into a filter. I've just got a low pass 24 dB filter here, little bit of resonance, and then I'm using an LFO to modulate the filter cutoff, and I'm using a saw wave shape, like a downward saw wave shape, which is what's creating that. I can change that to a sine wave, or yeah, whatever, square. And I've got this spread control turned all the way up to 100, and that's basically just doing exactly what I just demonstrated in the with the filter delay. It's just creating a small delay between the left and right channels. If I turn it off, on. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but yeah, it's pretty clear here. Yeah, so nothing really too technical there in terms of just like using an LFO and creating that kind of shape, but it was really getting the tone of it right, and that's where you can spend a lot of time messing around with FM oscillators. I can use, for example, I've got these other two oscillators are switched off, but I can use them to, I could use C to modulate B and D to modulate C, and chain them all up. In fact, there's a whole bunch of algorithms here for like different ways that the oscillators can relate to each other, and I mean it's basically infinite. There's so many different tones you can create with this. It's cool. Okay. So moving on, I've got a few more bass noises. This one here, which is in audio, which I made on my PC. It sounds just like a saw wave. It's obviously based on a saw wave, but the tonal character that I got with it was using a peaking filter. So just creates a peak in the frequency spectrum, kind of like you would do with an EQ. But I've got it moving over the course of the moving with the envelope. What do I mean? A synth called Diversion, which I believe there's a Mac version coming, but it was PC only to begin with. Highly recommend it. It's really good. Okay, so I'll just play that. Is that really loud? That was really loud to me. Okay, moving on then. I've got another bass stab here, which I've also made in operator. You can see I've got different kind of settings here. You know, I'm using different waveforms. You know, there's like loads of waveforms to choose from in each of the oscillators. And of course, when you have then the oscillators modulating each other and you've got all these different coarse tuning settings at different levels, it's, you know, really powerful. So this is just playing like it's doing like a little sort of pitch bend. So it just kind of fills a gap basically that was left by the other bass notes. And another one which kind of answers it here. So this one's in audio, but the two of them kind of work really nicely together and sound almost like one sound. That was made in a synth on my PC as well. Yeah. So they just kind of like, yeah, they sound like one sound really. Okay, I've got like a little wobble bass thing which comes in a bit later. Just got that triplet, that 8th note triplet. Comes in a bit later and just pushes things along. There's 2 tracks here which I'm not actually using anymore. I can delete those. And yeah, another wobble. Again, this was made on my PC in audio, but you know, there's no reason why you couldn't make this kind of thing using some of the techniques I've already discussed. So yeah, in this case, I'm actually modulating the LFO rate. So it starts off really slow, and it gets faster, and then it comes down to kind of a mid. Yeah. It's modulating the LFO rate is really powerful. You know, it's obviously it's done to death in like dubstep and stuff like that. But you know, if you do it, you know, obviously dubstep's all about the kind of like the impact and that kind of heaviness. But you know, if you do it like with the really kind of subtle, you know, subtle envelopes and you know like small LFO amounts and things, you can create sounds which sound like really, really like delicate and intricate. You know, just using the same techniques that you would use in dubstep or whatever. Okay, so that's pretty much all the bass sounds I have. Let's maybe no, I think that's pretty much them all. And it's quite nice when you make these kind of multi-part bass lines as well, because if you know, like I like to switch things up in the middle of the track, and you know have like I guess you can call it like a bridge section, which you know kind of comes before the breakdown, and I like to you know kind of change up the groove, and when you've got like all these different bass parts, you can just kind of you know rearrange them, and it can come out sounding like totally different. And you know if all the bass parts have got you know envelopes which are sweeping in time with the beats and things, then you know you can reverse them and stretch them and like reorder them and stuff, and you can create new grooves pretty easily. Okay, so I'll move on to the synth group, which is probably the biggest of all the groups. Again, some of these, as I say, unfortunately, I have to create on my PC, and I've only got as audio. But I think there should be a few that I can talk through. So I've got some wobs, yeah, which you know, a wob is just like a name I give to something that just goes wob. You know, it's basically something which has an envelope like a, you know, oh, it's got kind of like a shark fin shape, you know. Let's see. This one, I can't remember what this one is. Oh no, that was just like a little atmospheric noise. Yeah, just a kind of really resonant, just like a water drop. I just kind of stumbled across that by accident, put some reverb on it, and it just kind of added a nice little effect in a gap in the groove. Okay, so this one here I've called Metal Stab. I think it's got kind of a metallic character to it. Not really. I think it used to have a metallic character to it, but Yeah, okay. It's again, quite a deep sound. That's just just what I like. I don't. I mean, I do like stuff that's like quite heavy as well. But usually I keep things like pretty deep and try to bring out that kind of like that low mid kind of texture. So I've taken the lows out of that. You can see I've like boosted it here. Um, like sort of maybe in like the 500-600K range and just bring out that, um, it's nothing too complicated. Um, I've got oscillator B modulating the frequency of oscillator A. If I turn that off, that's hardly doing anything. Yeah. And that's just that just sits like right on the first kick drum of each 2-bar section. So just like a kind of stab. Okay. The intro sound. I've played around with that. Kind of showed you it. Basically, I made that by just getting it's just a sine wave. Just like a kind of like pure tone melody. I've made some kind of like random notes within the scale of the track, and I put some FM on it to give it some more kind of, that kind of sound character. And then I just ran it through. I think I might have ran it through the beat repeat street actually, and just experimented with some randomness, and kind of just like recorded it in. Of course, because if you're adding randomness to something, the way to get a handle on randomness is to loop it, because it's only random when you let it play, but you start looping it, it becomes ordered. And that's really all I did. It was just a simple, bunch of notes just playing, going through kind of a glitch effect, and then, recording it in and grabbing a part of it that I liked and looping it. I've got this sound here, which I've muted for some reason, but same kind of deal. I just used a sine wave. Just used a sine wave melody through a glitch thing, and just kind of got that loop. It's kind of like working with the computer. Just letting the computer do whatever it'll do in a kind of random situation, and then finding something within that you like. Okay, and then I've got like a bunch of like stabs. Now some of these are samples, and some of these I made myself, and they're kind of quite interesting chords. I don't know if anyone was in Matt Donner's class yesterday, and we were trying to learn how to recognize chords by and intervals by understanding how it makes you feel, and then trying to attach some names to that. Maybe you can tell me what these chords are, but I'm not entirely sure myself. Oh. Yeah, so yeah. Actually, I don't understand that when I solo that it doesn't play. Okay, here we go. So yeah, that was a sample. I don't know, I got from somewhere. I believe I pitched it up quite a fair bit. I think it was like a piano sample or something, and maybe pitched it up by an octave or more. Yeah, it really gives some good impact, I think. Yeah, and I've got some other ones here. Little high stab. It's just like putting that. One thing like as a kind of general, principle, I guess. Whichever grid you're working in, as I say, I'm working in the 8th triplet grid at the moment. Every single grid point has the potential to be, an accent, and it's just, it's kind of just up to you and your personal taste. But if you've got a grid point where nothing's hitting, or maybe something is hitting but it's quite deep or whatever, then that grid point has the potential to be used to create some kind of like accent or impact at that point, and then that can then determine a kind of a new groove. Um, yeah, I kind of kind of on that. I mean, one of the things in terms of like getting into like the right state of mind for making music and getting creative and stuff. Um, I I I've tried to get to a place over the years where I believe that there are no bad sounds. Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy, but I mean, a sound is a sound, and like I'm trying to make music which has a variety of textures and frequencies, and when you actually start to like when you think about what you've got with time stretching and reversing and effects and reverbs and resampling and all the tools at your disposal, there really are no bad sounds. I mean, you can take anything and make it into something usable, and it's worth holding that belief in your mind, because it then opens you up creatively. When you are looking through sounds, you're not just spend an hour like next, next, next. Just grab the first sound you find and make something good with it. Just do it. uh, it might, maybe you're not going to make you're not going to make like a classical melody from like a little blip noise, but you can make some kind of like blip or glitchy noise from the blip or whatever. Like every sound has the potential to be used in music. So, and then yeah, I had some other stabs here which kind of just, again, just really nice kind of like emotional chords. um yeah. So what else we got? um I think I have another wub here. I do have rather a lot of wubs. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. uh, yeah, I like that one. Um, Again, I've used operator. Um, it's a similar kind of deal. I'm only using oscillators B and A, but I've got different coarse tuning settings, different level settings, creating the tone, and obviously different waveforms from the other ones that you've heard. I have a bandpass filter, and yeah, I have an LFO with an upsaw, which is what's making it go whap. Um, and yeah, the LFO is controlling the filter cutoff. Um, like, it's got the amounts like right up at 98, but I can take that down. Again, just kind of pushes it along nicely. Those kind of whippy envelopes that I was talking about. Yeah, okay. What else have we got here? I've got something called fuzz. Let's have a listen to that. Just a little gritty noise. Each of the, on their own, that they're not much, but when you put them in the right place in the groove, and and they're bouncing off of everything else, that's just the way I work. Uh, I can't really play the piano, so I can't just sit down and just like write some like glorious melody. So I just get all these little bits that I like and layer them together and move them about until something unexpected emerges. So yeah, here I've got a squelch. I could talk a little bit about squelch, because squelch is very important in psychedelic music. Uh, yeah. So one of the things that this kind of sound is very common in psytrance and a lot of stuff. You're basically getting like a saw wave or like a pulse wave or something, something which has got like a kind of a sharp click in the waveform, and using filters and pitch envelopes to kind of like sweep through it. So at the moment on this one, I'm only using a filter envelope, which is just it's got quite a lot of resonance. Give it more resonance, So there's like a sound that is quite commonly used in psytrance, which basically involves doing what I've just done here, but also modulating the pitch as well. So I'll show you how it's done. So let's see. Just let me find out where I am. Oops. Okay, so so it's the LFO. Basically, the LFO is a triangle, and that's what's creating the shape there. So if I use that same LFO to control the pitch of the oscillator, so okay, hold on. So if I put filter frequency on here, yep, and then I press this A here, this will now control the pitch of oscillator A. But so that's now the pitch is going up in the same way that the cutoff's going up. But if I turn this the opposite way so that the pitch is going down as the frequency is going up, and that's a squelch, and that's really all there is to it. I mean, obviously you can do it with different waveforms and stuff. Like if you do it with like a pulse width, which operator doesn't actually have, but so you've got basically a square wave, but rather than it being half up and half down, you've got just a tiny bit up and then the rest is down. So you've just got that, just coming through. And then as that pitch is down, it really starts to get really gritty. It's like tick, 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 tick. But then as the cutoff's going up and the resonance is going up, it's like really, really squelchy. But you can also to take it even a step further, you can use a sampler and load in, like a percussion sound, and take like just the attack, like say like someone's like slapping a bongo drum or something, and just take like just the attack of that bongo and then loop it, and then pitch that up and down and put the cutoff, and you can get some like really cool textures, So that's like pitch and cutoff with a bandpass filter, going to the same envelopes, opposite ways, or the same way, you can have endless amounts of fun. Yeah, so you can make some cool stuff with that. But yeah, I'm probably not going to worry about getting it back to how it was. I'll just save it as something different. Yeah, because we're actually running out of time. So what else have I got? I've got a croak, which I kind of like sounds that have a kind of vowely character to them. They're used a lot in dance music, but you feel like when you hear like a vowely sound, you feel like you can kind of relate to it. You can almost kind of feel it in your throat. I'm not sure how I made that exactly. I use a synth called Zeta Plus. Yeah, I remember. Basically, I used 2 bandpass filters. So you know, if you look, actually, this is quite interesting. In the EQ for Ableton, it has a bunch of presets which mimic the character of different vocal sounds. You know, if you take like A for example. Okay, so you see here, it's basically got a few different peaks at sort of like, I mean, like the first peak's at like 730 hertz, and this one here like 2.5 kilohertz. And you know, all the different vowel sounds kind of look a bit like that. So there's E. This one's kind of higher up. And there's like I, and O, and so on. But you can see that more or less that they all have like two kind of narrow bumps which kind of move around. So you know, if you have a synth like Massive, you know, most people are familiar with Massive. That's got two parallel oscillators. Like Ableton's built-in synth only has one filter. Sorry, like Massive has two filters which you can have in parallel. So if you have these two band passes in parallel and you're modulating them individually, you can get some pretty interesting like vowel tones coming through. And that was how I made that sound, basically. I had two filters which were moving near to each other, and I got a kind of... I'm going to take that off. Yeah. Okay, and let's see. Here's my kind of like jazzy stabs. I think you've already heard these. Again, note the envelope, you know, kind of whippy envelope thing. I just love sounds with that kind of shape to them. You know, I kind of like think of the envelope as like kind of like brush strokes, you know, in paintings. You know, the brush strokes are kind of what make the form, and I think of envelopes in the same way. You know, often when I'm making music, like I'm getting like visions at the same time. Like I can, you know, they're barely perceptible, but just kind of like just at the surface of my mind, I can like see the sounds I'm working with, and it's usually the envelopes that create the shape of the sounds that I'm seeing in my mind, and the frequency content, which kind of creates the color. You know, I think there are some parallels. You know, there's some parallels between like geometry and sound and stuff, which I was going to talk about. I might still talk about, but it's like 20 to 10. So yeah, and then okay, so moving over then towards the breakdown stuff, I've got a whole bunch of like new sounds which come in the breakdown. Really kind of like quite melodic, jazzy kind of mellow stuff, which is kind of a new thing for me. Like most of the stuff I've made so far has been, you know, really kind of like techy. But this is just how I was feeling at the time. So if I'll just mute this synth grip for now. And let's get the pads as well. Yeah, so there's a few interesting techniques there that I'd like to share with you. The first one is like what I've done with the vibes here. Just mute that. Okay, so you might notice that the loop length is actually 3 bars and 1 beat, which I don't know if people do that often, but this is another thing that's really good for creativity. If you make loops which don't actually loop every bar or every 2 bars or every 4 bars, but actually loop kind of in between, then you know they come around at different points as you're listening. So it creates this, like with the beat repeat street, it creates kind of an element of randomness and unpredictability. So as you're listening, it's kind of changing, and you're not hooking into a particular loop. And I find that's really good for my creativity. In fact, sometimes, has anyone heard of the Fibonacci numbers? Yeah, sometimes I use the Fibonacci numbers. So it's a mathematical series which is made from adding the two numbers previous to it. So it goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, so on. So sometimes I'll create a loop which is 1 bar long, a loop which is 2 bars long, one which is 3 bars long, and one which is 5 bars long. And then I'll just, stretch them out to whatever, 32 bars. And if they're all melodic, then they every time it comes around, like, it's something different, And you have to choose your sound carefully, and you got to tweak the sound, obviously, but it's a really great technique for creating kind of like an endlessly changing melody. Yeah, so I've done that with the vibes, as I say. So they're not obviously playing any particular melody. They're just adding little kind of particles of melody throughout the breakdown. There's some consistency to it, but it's not. You can't really place where it begins or ends, or what it's doing. So I quite like that. So this last bit here. There, I'm just using basically a sine wave with a bit of frequency modulation at the start to create that pop. And I think also that's looping in a weird timing as well. What we got here? Yeah, again, just a sine wave. It's got a little bit of bit crushing on it. And I've used Ableton's time stretching feature, which is what gives it that effect on the first note. It's just time stretching. Just basically 2 notes, very simple, but with the time stretching, it adds a kind of glitchy element to it as well. And then I've got this one here, which I've called Techie Spikes or something. Again, just a supportive sound, just to like sit between all those different, little, as I say, particles of sound that are happening to make up that kind of melodic section in the breakdown. Okay, so I got some pads and sweeps and things. This one here. It's actually a really powerful sound, and I made that using diversion, and it's I don't even think I'm not using. So excuse me. I don't think I'm using filters here at all. This is all oscillator parameters. So sweeping with the envelope, basically the waveform is changing. It has a ton of different oscillator parameters, basically. Also, since like Zebra. Massive is good. It has a kind of wavetable position, intensity, these kind of things. When you start modulating those, and you're not always having to work with like low pass filters or band pass filters or whatever. You got to tweak, but you can find some really, really interesting tones.